I was like, whoa, God, like, I can get the same feeling, if not better, from just letting you love me and letting your spirit fall on me. And I experienced a manifestation that they call speaking in the Holy Spirit, like speaking in tongues. And I know that's crazy to some people, but, like, I know what I felt. And, like, words were coming out of my mouth, and it was so beautiful. And, like, it was like warm honey all over me. And I felt his spirit swirling through me, and I was like, ooh, God is so real, and it feels so good. And I just felt loved and accepted. And that's what you get from that practice of meditation and prayer and connecting with your higher power. It's amazing. It's better than anything you've ever had.
It's so overlooked. It's so overlooked. It really is. And a lot of people think that, oh, I don't get anything from it. I've prayed. I'm not, it's continually doing so, whether or not it's happening for you or not. And I think that's what's that's the beauty in it, and helps you to be in that meditation stage, is because you're just consistently going to that place, doing that thing each time, even though you're not getting that sign from something, or and I think that's the beauty of it for me, at least, is I'm talking to him at all times of the day. I don't have the strength today to do this. I don't have the want and will to homeschool a 3 and 6-year-old today, Lord. Give it to me. So it's important whether or not you connect that way to it or not. It doesn't have to be anything but just a continuous thing that you show up for every single day that brings you that peace. And like I always say, like, Lord, give me peace, life, go river. Like, water is something that I find to be very peaceful as well. So I don't know, I think it's just something you need to show up to, even if you're uncomfortable with it, and even if you don't know how to talk like in that way, I think it's important to show up that way. So. And
I think, like, even practices like yoga, like, you connect to your spirit person.
Yes.
And that doesn't have to be spiritual like we're talking about, but spiritual, just acknowledging I have a body and there's a spirit inside of it. And if you connect to that energy flow, you're connecting to this different path for your life. You're not being controlled by your flesh and what it wants. You're just focusing on this higher calling and connecting with this higher spirit. Some people express it that way. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. So we have a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And the last one is we try to carry that message to others. And that's like the hugest step. When you get your healing, you want to share it with someone else and set them free. Here we are. And that's why we're here tonight. It's the best part.
Yeah. It really is.
It really is.
It gives all the pain a purpose. Like, when you can say, this happened to me, but now I can share my story and help someone else, it makes it all make sense, and it makes it worth it. It had a reason.
Well, and then with, like, a group like us, you realize you're not alone.
Yes.
You're not the only one that has dealt with trauma. You're not the only one that is broken and trying to fix yourself.
Right. And there's all different versions here of how we're even showing up for that,
Yes.
So it really does. It makes a difference.
Yep, you're not alone. You're not the only one. You have a story to share. It's not something to be ashamed of.
And like you said earlier, I loved what you said when we were talking about just being here, and because there's nerves around this for anyone. I don't care how good you are. Like, this is a nerve-wracking situation. And we were talking about that, and it's like, we have to look at everything that we go through in our lives, no matter how that looks. Even being here right now, the way we're acting in this moment, like, this is a part of that story that you're going to tell someone in a little while down the road. I went to this thing, we don't know, something can happen today that you leave here and you're like, wow, and this is how I feel. I don't know, I just feel like there's purpose in everything that you go through, so it's really important.
Yeah, it's important to look for it too.
The positives, the beauty in life.
Find it.
Search for the dopamine, but also fix the rest of it.
Happy ways. Good coping mechanisms. Good dopamine, please.
Yes. So we talked about making amends and forgiveness. I want to talk a little bit about taking responsibility also. I think we shared in the steps a little bit, but like, if you have been abused, it's important to realize that was not your fault. And you don't have to carry that responsibility anymore. It wasn't your fault. Someone hurt you because they made bad choices. They probably have unhealed trauma, honestly. But getting to that point to where you take that responsibility off your own shoulders and putting it back on the abuser is really a big, important step. And then taking responsibility. You're not responsible for what they did to you, but you are responsible for what you do with that pain and the choices you make as a result of it.
So another thing, sorry. One of the other things that we have gotten to and learned between my partner and I is that reasons, not excuses. And we will make that point, that this is the reason I'm acting this way. It is not an excuse, but now I understand why I acted this way, so that I can learn to change that behavior, or help me. We can work together, and if I do that again, call it out.
Right.
Call it out lovingly,
Right.
but call it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All in love.
Yep.
All in love.
And I think responsibility, there's also some key points to make about that for children. Sometimes, things that a hurt or an abuse can happen when you're a child, and you may act out while you're still a child, and do things that may have hurt somebody else, or you also do not have guilt in that. When you're still a child, you're a child. You're trying to figure life out.
Right.
It's very confusing when you don't have a safe person instructing you and leading you as you grow.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's important not to take responsibility that you shouldn't be taking for what happens when you're a child.
I was reading in this book this week about childhood trauma, and I think what you said just reminded me of that. The child may feel powerless and misbehaving and frightening others because of their own fear. They want a sense of control, so they act out because they're feeling unloved, and they're trying to prove their self-worth because they feel so worthless because of what they went through, a traumatized kid, okay? And then, so they're acting out because they feel like they deserve to be rejected, and that's what's going to prove that their lie in their head is true. And so it helps as a parent. I raised some kids who've been through trauma, and so understanding their negative behaviors and difficult, things that I was like, but it was like, no, this kid needs love. This kid's just acting out, and they just need you to prove to them they're lovable.
Yeah.
So their misbehavior is not necessarily bad. Like, they're not bad. They're hurting.
Yeah.
So that helps as a parent to see in your kids, and also understanding about yourself, because we're all just little hurting kids on the inside.
Yeah.
And learn how to repair.
Yeah.
Learn how to repair the right way.
Yep.
Yeah.
All of our actions have a root cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of have something similar in my notes. So one of the hardest things for traumatized people, so adults, to confront is their shame about the way they behave during a traumatic event, whether it is objectively warranted, as in the commission of atrocities, like sometimes people that are in war, soldiers that are in war, will commit atrocities, not understanding that was a trauma response.
Yeah, right.
Or not, so as in the case of a child who tries to placate their abuser. So they're trying to please their abuser, not understanding that's a natural response. And so there's a lot of shame as an adult sometimes over trying to please an abuser, right? So it's again things that we need to not take on that we often try to take on as our responsibility, that they're not.
Yeah.
Good.
This was a big one in my inventory, was just realizing that as a small child, I did things even as a child further down the road that didn't make sense to me, and I felt like I was the issue. But I was told to give myself grace in that, because I'm confused. I don't understand. I'm trying to figure out who I am as a kid, and I know that that's a lot of people out there in the world. Is I don't understand why this happened to me. I don't understand why I have this this coping mechanism to this thing, or why I did this specific thing my whole life. And a lot of people, this stems in like sexuality and how they are, whether they're aggressive or non-aggressive with sex. Sorry if I can't talk about that, but that's just the reality of it. A lot of it people don't realize, but that's a big one in trauma, is people being over-sexualized or being under-sexualized, and not realizing that those are really big things in childhood. And that stems a lot from what we see, what we go through, the things that our parents do that we adapt to, like I said earlier, taking on that belief system that what they do is what we should do, and that also is a big thing. So I do want to remind not only us sitting here, but anyone who's watching, that that's huge. That is really big, and you are validated in that. Like, I want you to understand that whatever it is, it probably most likely was not your fault at that age.
Yeah.
I personally believe anything under the developmental age of like 12 to 15, I would say you're more being groomed in your life by your parents. And I say grooming because it is a form. If it's not positive, that you need to just be aware of and be okay with that, especially with me. And I say this because a lot of my identity stemmed from that growing up, is that I was this sexual person because this is how it was. When in reality, I'm not that sexual of a person. I just adapted to this belief system of myself because this is what I felt growing up. When in reality, that wasn't the truth, and I'm not that sexual of a person, and I'm actually very healthily sexual, per my therapist, you know? So, yeah, and I think we really sexualize men and we under-sexualize women, thinking I'm going to go vice versa in that. It could be either way. There's a lot of men that were like, you should be more sexual, but you're not. And then there's some women who are like, you're not sexual enough, and this is a lot of the leading causes in marriages. If we figure out what, and not making it such a hush-hush situation, right? Well, we can't tell our partner that they're not doing what we want in bed. Well, Why not? I'm going to be honest, because I'm going to meet my need and I'm going to meet theirs. And I want it to be healthy and I want it to be intimate and I want it to be okay, but we can't do that if we have sexual trauma. Yeah. And that's being anything. That's being that we were touched, whatever, when we were younger, or if we didn't, but we were, like I said, we were confused about what happened and we're just trying to figure it out ourselves, experimentation, because we want to be in control. And that's my biggest downfall. That's my biggest defect. Is that I want to control everything, so therefore I will almost become this, what was the word I used?
It was a good one.
It was. It was like destructive.
Yeah, self-destructive.
Just self-destructive, because, I don't know, like, that's just...
Because of the fear of intimacy.
Yeah, it's a fear of intimacy, it's a fear of being wrong, it's fearing of not let's say, performing right, you know, like, or... being too performy and wanting too much, you know, and we could go down that lane in so many different areas, but I just feel like that's a big one too. And I want men to especially hear me when I say this. You don't have to be go bunny all the time. You don't have to hump everything. We're cool with it. We want you to be lovable and intimate with us and emotional. And when you give us that, I promise you, baby, this is how we're constructed. We will give you that submission and that respect all day long. You know what I mean? But we can't get there because this is how we're acting. So always be open with your partner. If you're not liking it, if they're making you do stuff you don't want to do, or if you're on the other end where, like me, I had to sit down and apologize to my husband about that. Like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I've done. I'm sorry, and I'm going to back up, because that's not who you are as a person. But again, I hypersexualized him because why? He's a man. He should, right? Yeah. So I know that's off, but still in the realm.
A big part.
Yeah, and it's something we don't talk about. And I've really, that's a defect. I've really had a lot of freedom just today in, and I just really want everyone to hear that loud and clear. Yeah. That it doesn't matter, even if you are in a relationship where you're a Christian and you feel like you can't be doing, you know, like whatever you're in, it doesn't matter. Just do it that way. Talk, communicate, be open. And I promise you 9 times out of 10, you'll roll back and say, okay, that's a response to something that isn't true about me. Any quarrel that goes on with yourself or with another person is usually right in here. And that's biblical, you know? Huge. So, yeah.
I love that. Anyone else want to share on that? That's a huge part, like sexuality and trauma. Yeah.
Touchy one, but it's a good
Very
one.
important. More people need to talk about it.
Yeah.
So basically, is there hope for healing from trauma? And research does strongly suggest that humans have an innate capacity and ability to adapt and positively transform, even after traumatic stressful events. Okay, so most importantly, we need supportive, positive, and healthy activities that can contribute to positive well-being among trauma survivors. So the change starts with ourselves first, and we can provide children with safety, support, love, and protection that they need. But we need to also recognize, without judgment, with compassion, that their trauma is very widespread, and a lot of people could be dealing with it, children and adults, men and women, no matter what their age. So when we're aware of it, we can make a change for ourselves and others. So there is hope. So what are some practical ways that we can help ourselves and others who may be going through trauma and need healing? What can we do? What can we suggest to people watching who are like, oh, that's me. What do I do now? What's something that they can do to find healing?
Find a community group. Find a group of people that you feel most comfortable, that you can elevate yourself in, and also feel like you're giving back, because I feel like serving in your community is like the best way to like heal. I mean, it's a part of your healing recovery. But I think for me, if I had to say, find somewhere where you feel comfortable, somewhere where you feel like you are in there, you feel like you're accepted for who you are, your downfalls, your down things that you're going through aren't going to be judged by anyone in that area, so that you can come in fully and heal yourself that way. I think authenticity is the first recognition of being healed, because you're being real with yourself, you're being real with everyone around you. I think that's big. I think it's really huge. And I know since I've been involved in a community group at my church and being involved in a further study of that, I feel like I have really gained a lot of insight and healing, and have healed a lot of my own traumas, especially, I mean, I wouldn't be able to sit in this room if it wasn't because of it, because I'm not comfortable with female companionship at all, because a lot of my trauma stem from my mother. So it's like, it's hard for me to trust anybody that is a female, to be honest.
But look at her killing it tonight. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Like, what would you tell somebody who needs help? What
I
can
think
they
my
do?
biggest advice would be just pay attention and be honest with yourself. Pay attention. If you are consistently getting upset over a specific situation, why? Why does this frustrate you? Is it you don't feel like you're getting the communication? Do you feel ignored? You know, what specifically is it about the situation that is causing those issues over and over again? Because if you take time to look at yourself and pay attention to your routine, to your daily, to how you act, to how you feel, you'll find those common denominators. And it's not easy. We're always dealing with things day-to-day life. But if we do not fully figure out what the weight is, how are we going to carry it? And if we're not honest about how much that weight is, how are we going to get somebody else to help us carry it?
Right.
It's good.
I like it.
So profound over there.
I know, Edie. Where are you coming from?
There's been a lot of this stuff going on in my life lately.
So
Can you tell?
good.
Hey, at least we know you're practically doing it healthy, you know?
How about you, Sadie? Any suggestions for people?
I would just say, like she said, find a safe space, someone to talk to, work on setting new boundaries and new habits and stuff.
That one's really important. Recognizing the difference between boundaries and rules, too, though.
Yeah.
The boundaries are for ourselves and rules are for others.
Right.
That is something that we tend to drop the ball on and set rules. But why are we setting rules for other people? We get to set our boundaries. Others get to decide if they're going to follow our boundaries.
That's good.
Then we get to decide how we're going to handle them not following our boundaries.
Right.
It is not putting a rule and saying, you can't do this.
Then it's control.
It is a, hey, I will not tolerate this. I will not accept this.
I needed to hear that.
That's so
truly.
good.
Yeah, because I really needed to hear that from
There's
my
a
control
huge
stuff.
difference between boundaries and rules.
Yeah.
And we don't always think about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Very
Yeah.
good. How about you, Christy? Anything?
Yeah, I have to give my plug for Celebrate
Do
Recovery.
it.
I wanted to go there so bad.
Do it. What is
I
Celebrate
just
Recovery?
happen to, so Celebrate Recovery is a Christian-based recovery group that was started out of a church in California called Saddleback Church. If you're familiar with Rick Warren, who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, which a lot of people are familiar with, it's that same church that he was part of. But it's basically very much based on the program that Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, started. It takes the same, very similar 12 steps, but puts a very Christian-based perspective on them. It roots everything very much in Scripture. And so it is a program, and it's throughout the world now, but they will have meetings at lots of different locations. I think we have probably 20 different locations in the Tulsa metro area, for example, on different nights of the week. So there will be essentially a meeting where most of the time there's a meal before, and a lot of times you can get a free meal, so that's always something kind of nice.
Yeah.
But you go there, and then you'll have what they call a large group, and usually they'll either be talking about one of the steps. They'll walk through the steps. And they also have some principles that go along with those steps, but they'll be talking about those. Or they will have a testimony or a story of somebody's transformation of going through the 12 steps and what a difference it's made in their life. And so it's all about what we've been talking about here is how can we learn from our past and our history, and how can we turn that into our future, which is a very bright thing if you can heal from a lot of these things that have happened. And so anyway, they will have a story, and then there's some small groups that are based after that are based on different areas of struggle, such as addiction or your
Eating disorder.
eating issue, food issues, food and body images. Is one of them, or codependency, or
addiction,
trauma.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
trauma
trauma.
group. So then you'll just have a small group discussion. It will be females with females and males with males.
Very comfortable.
And it's just there to talk through what you learned that night, and talk about the blessings that you've had in that week. And it's a safe place to work through whatever it is you got going on as far as hurts, habits, or hangups. And I think it's made all the difference in my life. So that's why I say I have to put that plug in there for that, because I also would not have had relationships with other females. It just never felt safe for me. And now I have that in spades, and my life is so full. I'm so blessed. I'm blessed to be here this evening and be able to share and talk about this, because I am very passionate about trying to have other women heal and be able to recover from trauma. I think it's like 1 in 3 women now will suffer some sort of violence in their life, and I think it's just so incredibly important for us to talk about it and to work through it together.
Amen. I love it.
And I wanted to give a little plug for therapy. If you need help, go to seek therapy. I know it can be a scary thing, and they're gonna judge me, but especially for trauma, my personal experience was the EMDR trauma therapy. You should give it a try. I will tell you my personal experience. Because of my childhood sexual abuse, I noticed a difference before and after I did EMDR therapy, trauma therapy. It's like these little vibrating things they put in your hands, and I think there was lights, flashing lights back and forth, something about the right and left and the parts of your brain it's activating. And you tell your story, you go back to that traumatic event and just retell it, and it kind of reprograms your brain, and then all of a sudden it's not as scary anymore. And I was like, this is weird. It was just flashing lights. It's not going to make a difference. But I tried it. And literally, I remember before I did it, if I told my story of what happened to me when I was a kid, it would come with sobbing, uncontrollable feelings, all these emotions. And I would tell the story from my own little girl eyes looking out. But then I noticed after that, I could tell the story without crying, without my throat closing up. And my perspective inside my head was on the outside looking in.
More a third
I was
party
telling a story
instead of...
about the little girl. I was no longer that little girl. And that really set me free. It
Awesome.
all of a sudden widened my perspective. So I would highly recommend therapy. It does make a difference. If you can afford it, it's worth it. Also, like you said, find a group, support other people. And I would just like to end also by saying, if you're in a mental health crisis right now, if something we said tonight got you thinking you need help, call 988, text 988, whatever it is, the mental health crisis line. Someone is there ready to talk to you, ready to help you and guide you the right place to get the help you need. And that's the first scariest step, but most important step, and we believe in you. You can do it. So closing thoughts. Basically, I just wanted to tell the audience, you're not alone. These are the things I wish I had heard.
Yeah.
You're not alone. You're not the only one. No one's going to judge you if you ask for help, if you reach out. You're not a bad person. You've just been through some really bad stuff. And what you're feeling is normal.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, to normalize it. Like, yeah, you should be feeling this way and having these symptoms. You went through something awful. So accepting your new normal after your trauma is not saying it's okay what happened to me. I wanted that to happen. It should happen again. It's not saying that. It's saying, yeah, that sucked. It happened. Don't like that happened. But what I'm saying is I'm okay with this new normal. And now I can move forward to a brighter future.
Yep.
So we're okay with what happened to us. And we're saying we're going to be okay anyways, in spite of it.
It's official.
And not just okay, we can thrive. And we can use it for good. So that's what I wanted to tell the audience. Anyone else want to tell, if your sister was watching and she's struggling right now, what would you tell the camera?
Give yourself grace. It's not easy. It's really not easy going through any of this. But like it's not going to always be here. I love that saying, and I know some people don't, but this too shall pass, and it will. And there is a light to the end of the tunnel, even if you don't see it, even if it's really dark and you don't understand, you can't articulate anything you're going through. Don't stop, don't ball up, don't isolate, don't find those mechanisms that are not going to get you further than you want to be, you know, or keep you there, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because it really isn't helpful. Like, and addictions, they're not going to help you. Like, it doesn't matter from small to big, they're not going to help you. You'll be in them for a while, they might make you feel good, but they're not ever going to completely fix the problem. If I had something to say, and it was just me personally, in my opinion, it would be find God, sis. Lean on him. He's going to be your peace throughout all of the bad that happens. Find community, find those people that make you comfortable. Be authentic with yourself, be open, don't be scared, don't let people set you back in that, because they'll tell you nothing's wrong with you, especially if you're hanging with a group of people that wants you to stay there. I don't know, just my personal perspective, I guess.
Take it one day at a time, and don't be afraid to be open and get help, and let people help you.
Yeah. Amen.
That every step counts, even the backward steps.
Amen.
Every step
I got
counts.
goosebumps.
That's so good. Me
Definitely.
too.
Brady, what are you doing to us, dude? Oh my gosh.
I told my son the other day, you're not failing just because something didn't work out. You're failing if you stop trying.
Right.
You learned something when you took that step back.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Yeah.
don't step there, step somewhere else.
It's
Yeah.
always a learning progress.
I love it. Oh,
It's
love
a process, a long process. You keep taking steps forward.
Yes.
So good.
I agree.
Anything else, Christy?
Yeah, I would just say, if you're in crisis, tell somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hardest step, and you may be scared, but do it scared. Tell somebody.
Yeah.
So good.
Tell
Get
somebody.
there. Keep seeking.
And we're
Awesome.
here for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. This was a
Yeah.
great talk tonight. Glad you were
Yes.
here.
So glad to be
Hope
here.
y'all took something great away from it and share it with your friends. I think this was awesome.
Yeah,
It
it
was.
was.
People need to
great.
hear this.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Agreed.
Thanks
Good
so
job,
much.
Marissa.
See you
Thanks for
next time.
having us. Bye.
What an unbelievable experience it is.